talk of the month. It's August, month 8, and I'm here to talk to you today. It's the first Wednesday of August. Ricky is doing this wonderful, cool Kaleidoscope class. It was started last Monday. It was Monday and Friday last week. It's Monday and Friday this week. But even if you've missed any of them, they continue to be available. It's a completely free class. It is so much fun. Mine's behind me there. I needed the design wall. You definitely need a design wall. And I posted a picture yesterday of mine, half up and half, the top half sewn and the bottom half ready to go. And today, while I was waiting to get this going, I started to sew the bottom half, and I had every piece in the wrong place on the bottom half. I had to completely move everything around. So it's really easy to get confused. And so it's fixed now, and I'm in the process of going it. But it's a lot of fun, particularly if you're a kind of person who wants to plan every fabric in advance and wants to know exactly where every fabric is going to go before you even start. This is a great one to kind of break you out of that mold. Darks and lights, and as long as you like the fabrics, you're going to like the quilt. Anyway, so that's enough about that. But that's why I'm here today on Wednesday instead of the normal first Friday. Let's talk about month 8 printing problems. There's always these kind of, particularly when we're paper piecing, the patterns have to be correct for you, and I understand that. So why do we even have these issues? European and Australian designers, the countries that use the metric system, use different size paper than we do. They use what's called A4. We use letter size. A4 is 8 1/4 by 11 3/4, and it's based on meters. Combinations of connections that would be easy to calculate in meters. So that means that paper is longer at 11 3/4 than ours is. So occasionally things that fit for the designer on her piece of paper don't fit for us on our piece of paper. The patterns that I had last year worked just fine on my regular paper. I didn't have any problems, but there were some corrections that were made. I had Wendy had made some changes, like words were, it said right side when it should have said left side, things like that. So she changed those, and then lo and behold, this week when people started to print, they were having trouble with page 5, which has a long skinny strip, and I'm just going to hold it up quickly to show you. This is the one I'm talking about, page 5, and it's the right side, and it's the shadow that's the problem. I printed this the other Sunday morning when people started to say there was a problem. I printed it on my iPad. I looked at it and went, no, that's fine, until I measured the 1-inch scale box, and it's not 1 inch. It's slightly less than 1 inch. That's why this long shadow fits on this piece of paper. So I did it again, printed it again with making sure that I had it from the download file, and the 1-inch square scale box just kind of hung off the end. It didn't quite fit, and that's why the shadow end is hanging off of there. All right, so I worked on the phone with our wonderful, wonderful Mary Kay, who takes care of the website and things. For about an hour, she tried to move things around, and she just couldn't, and because of the way the designer had drawn the pattern. That's just the way it is. And we don't ever like to change the designer's patterns. That's how they come from the designer. But you do need that strip to be long enough to cover. So the simplest solution, and several people came up with this on their own, is just draw the little line that's missing here, the shadow down here. Just continue the lines down. Make it longer than it needs to be. When you sew it to the right side, and this is a left side, well, okay, here is a right side. When you sew it to the house itself, and this is a right side, when you sew it over on the right side, you just trim off that extra that hangs down there, and it'll be just fine. The same thing is going to happen in month 9, when we have the last of the tall buildings number 4. They are really tall. They're the ones that are going to go right up against the skyscrapers in the corners, and they're really long. Those shadow pieces fill an entire sheet of paper on the diagonal to try to get it to fit just right. And I've printed those already this morning to check on those. They look right to me. One of those shadows, and I think it's the right side, for next month, you lose a little bit of a corner on there, again, because of the paper, but just draw it in and it'll work out just fine. That little template for the shadow is simply a cutting template to make sure that you have the right width and size of the width in particular of the piece. As long as it's longer than it needs to be, you can cut it out. Okay, I'm going to show, okay, I'm going to turn on my document camera here in a minute so I can show you a few things up close. And one of the things that I'm going to talk about just briefly, I showed it in the video that is still available for this month. I did a video for month 8, and it shows how you can get mixed up. And my wonderful test sewer, Pam, who's making these blocks ahead of time for me, so I have something for you to demo with, had sewed all of her shadows on the wrong side of her tall buildings number 3, meaning that she put the shadow on the left side building, she put the shadow on the right side, and vice versa on the others. And it's easy to do. They look right. You don't even realize that they're not right. So I'm going to show you that. Encourage you not to do that. It's a simple matter to fix. You simply unsew that shadow, take off the top, take off the shadow, reverse them again. But the next thing, then I also want to talk about looking ahead to the fabrics selections for, especially for kit folks, as we get close to the end, and there's some fabrics that you want to hang on to make sure you have them when we get to the skyscrapers. So let me click over here to the document camera. Okay, so this first little picture just shows the Pam's. This is the one I fixed. This is her left side. And I know that because my pattern, now I printed my pattern a year ago. You have different house patterns. When Wendy corrected this pattern last year, she switched out these photos. There's different photos on here, but it's still tall building number 3, left side, tall building number 3, right side. Difference in doors, long, skinny, short, squatty. And the number of, this has 6 windows, this has 8. Okay, so just make sure you're keeping straight with right side, left side. Okay. So when she had made hers, here are her, what she called tall building number 3, left side. Sure enough, this lower part is the left side, but she's got the shadow sewn to the right side instead of the left side. She did that with all 4 of them. So I fixed this one a couple weeks ago, so we would have something to talk about on the live that I did and the little, put it in my blog. I had to take off the top, I had to remove the shadow on this side, flip it, or over here and flip it back over there. Okay, very, very, very easy to get confused, and you don't even see it until something doesn't seem right. So that was the story on how, and it'll happen again, in month 4. Those tall buildings are pretty tall coming out to the corners. So now let's talk a little bit, especially if you're the kit people, and we sold lots and lots and lots of these kits to these. So I want to talk a little bit about colors. I went back this morning and looked at my blog. I thought I had mentioned this way back when, but I don't see that I did. I did say when you first started cutting up your solid fabrics, this is the kit, folks, with the for making the small houses and then the tall buildings now, to just start with a 3.5-inch strip of each fabric, except the black and white. But now we need to be thinking ahead a little bit. When I first started the quilt, I looked ahead to the skyscrapers and what other fabrics were I going to need. And my kit only included 1/4 yard of each fabric. I quickly decided we needed more. So the kits that we made up, we bumped all of those yardages up on the smaller pieces to 1/3 yard instead of 1/4. So let's just look ahead at what's coming. The little houses in the city are month 10. That's October. They're little houses, and you can use any fabric colors that you want. Some of the folks I know are going to personalize those, put house numbers on them to make them look like their own homes and places where they've lived. And I think that's really cool. So here's month 11, just so that you can see them. There's 2 skyscrapers in month 11, Big Ben and One World Trade Center. This is the replacement building to the original World Trade Center in New York City. When you want to look at the colors that are being used here, if you have the kit, before you end up using up all of these fabrics before we get to month 11. So Big Ben uses 2 colors of this kind of rust. There's a rusty red and a coral color. And what happens with kits all the time, and I'm the same way, even my fabric pulls that I pull myself, I have my favorite fabrics and I grab them over and over and over again, and I use them up until there is no more. And if you were one of those people that felt that way about these two reds, when we get to the Skyscraper and Big Ben, you might be concerned if you don't have enough, because they just use these two colors and a background fabric. But here's what I have to say about that if you don't have enough. Any brick red is as good as any other brick red. Any of this kind of corally pink color would work just fine. You just have to have enough. And when you get the pattern in November, the month 11, you will be able to know exactly how much you need as you cut out the pieces. But you've still, at this point, we have this month, 8 tall buildings number 3, and next month, 8 tall buildings number 4. Now would be a good time for you to start thinking, maybe I shouldn't be using up those 2 reds if I need to save those for Big Ben. Just a heads up to kind of keep you looking forward into that. With One World Trade, there are 3 fabrics plus the background. In this middle section, it's the light blue, and there was quite a bit of that. I believe the kid had a half a yard of that blue, so you should have plenty of that light blue. And then what I called a blue-gray color. That's used here in the middle section. On the 2 outer sections, it's that same blue-gray, and it's hard to see in this picture, but it's a dark teal is the color that I use there. And you can see there's quite a bit of that. They're narrow strips, but there's a lot of it because it's really tall. And just a reminder that I have given the design areas for for the skyscrapers, so that you can go back and look. I have those on the forum. You can find them quite easily. Search the forum will do it for you, or you can look in the Color My World section. So, but there's quite a bit of that. And then black. You got some black in here, the top of the spire, and you should have enough black left if you have the kit. And if not, any black will do the trick going right there. Okay, so that's for month 11. Month 12 are the other 2 skyscrapers. They are the Eiffel Tower and Center Point Tower. Now, if you're making this quilt, personalizing it, making it your own, and not doing these particular buildings, that's fine. And even if you have the kit, this won't apply to you. But if you do have the kit, I'm just, again, showing you the colors that are being utilized so that you can be sure you have them. In the Eiffel Tower, all this that you see that's black here, that's from the black bias tape. If you have bought the kit and had the reels, the spools of bias tape, you have plenty of that bias tape left. There was 11 yards in each one. There were 2 packages, 22 yards, and the whole entire quilt took, in the vicinity of 17 yards. So you should have plenty of the black bias tape. If you didn't have black bias tape in the kit, any old black would do, and you can make your own. They're all straight lines, too, so you really don't need bias so much as you need the width, the finished edge. So you can see, and all of that black bias tape on the Eiffel Tower sits on a dark gray. So those are the only colors that are used in this. The background fabric, the bias tape for black, and set on a gray base that gives us the Eiffel Tower. Your Eiffel Tower can be any color that you want. It actually, in real life, I've been told by people who have seen it in person that it's more of a coppery color as opposed to black. Then Center Point Tower, which is a landmark in Sydney, Australia. And of course, our designer is from Australia, so she wanted a place that was related to her home and her world. This one uses 2 shades of yellow tan kind of color up here, a piece of black, and then these long legs are also black bias tape on a gray base in the middle. Okay, a lot of people who saw this, especially U.S. people, thought that was the Space Needle, not done very well. It's not the Space Needle; it's the Center Point Tower. It could be the Space Needle in Seattle if you change the measurements, and that's why I gave you the design area for people that want to play around and come up with the designs. I know some people are doing the St. Louis Arch, Washington Monument, Statue of Liberty, things like that. So I just wanted to mention those things now as you're starting to look ahead. Another thing just to remind you, because we revealed this last November 3rd, and many people right off the bat were so taken with it, they signed up as members. The decision was made right then, and it was announced then, that this year in November 1st, not only will you get pattern month 11 for these two blocks, but you will get this pattern as well on November 1st. So that if you joined and had a membership, say you joined on November 4th, and your membership expires this year on November 4th, you would need to renew in order to get the 12th month. And rather than do that, the decision was made that you will have anyone who signed up in November is guaranteed to get all 12 of these patterns, because they're going to reveal both of them November 11, or the month 11 and month 12 on November 1st. So I just wanted to be clear about that. Now, having said that, I'm going to go back to talk to you. Okay, so having said that, right now there is a membership special that's going on, and it only lasts through this Friday, August the 6th. And it is, they don't do membership specials all that often. We had a COVID one last year, and now we've got this. It's $10 off. That's a 20% discount off your membership. Makes membership $39.95. That's 77 cents a week. Now, I've been a fan of the Quilt Show since way before I started working with them on these blocks of the month. I've only done that for the last 5 years. But we've had 14 years of quilt shows. And as a Star member, you have access to all of them. So be aware of that. You can go, there's a great search box at the top of every page of the Quilt Show, where you can search for all kinds of things. And so let's say you put in the word applique in the search box on the top, not search the forum, but the top search. It'll pop up and show you shows that pertain to applique, classes that pertain to under learn. So shows are under watch, classes are under learn. Quiltopedia, you can spend hours going through Quiltopedia. There's all kind of great information there. And just so much information that you can find there. The current show, I want to mention that one. That's David Serrata. And Lilo Bowman does some great tips on how you can improve your workspace if you need to make some changes, just because you're, for whatever reason, downsizing or limited abilities, things like that. But David Serrata's was on paper piecing, which of course is how we're making Color My World. His technique, and I watched the show carefully yesterday, his technique appears to me to be almost identical to what we're doing with the freezer paper, but he doesn't use freezer paper. He uses translucent vellum. You can see through the vellum. It prints nicely. He has no problem with that. But it has no sticky, like the freezer paper has the plastic coating on the back that'll help to secure your fabric. He uses glue stick. He uses vellum and glue stick. But he does very similar to the process that Wendy had recommended. So if you haven't watched his show yet, the current show number 2903, I encourage you to do that before you work on these again, because he's got some great tips that are just good reminders and visuals, very much like we showed with Wendy's technique, pre-folding all of the lines before you start and things like that. He's got some really good tips, and I think you'll find it. And if you've struggled with the freezer paper and wanted to change to a different kind of paper, the process is the same, and you can learn from his show exactly how he does that without freezer paper. It does involve a glue stick, but it's minor. It's Elmer. He uses Elmer's washable glue, the purple disappearing kind, which I like real well because you can see it when you put it on the paper, but it dries clear. So I want to encourage you, if you haven't taken the time to look at that, it's just a great reminder at this stage of the game, some of those tips on how to work with these paper patterns like this. Yes, I use the freezer paper, but he used translucent vellum. You could do the same with newsprint. You just can't see through newsprint. So I would encourage you to take a look at that. As you are getting your tall buildings done, if you want to start sewing them together, you can. Just remember that left side is on the left side of a skyscraper corner. In the quilt is the four corners are the skyscrapers. And you can look at a full picture. There's plenty of places that have a full picture, including my quilts laying there on the chair behind us. And so you can see that the skyscrapers are in the four corners. To the left of the skyscraper are tall buildings left. And to the right of the skyscraper are tall buildings right. And you start with, on the left side, 1, 2, 3, 4 going up to the skyscraper. And on the right side, you start at the skyscraper with 4, 3, 2, 1 going back down. if you want to do that now instead of waiting until you get to the end. But either way, it's fine. When you have all 32 of the tall buildings, that's what you will do, is join those together. Okay. I'm going to recommend a couple of things. One is the newsletter. If you haven't signed up for the newsletter, or you thought you did and now you don't get them anymore, on the homepage of the website, you can sign right up for the newsletter. They come out about 4 times a week. I think it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and Sunday. I learn all kind of great stuff from the newsletter. I'm a huge fan of the puzzles and the games. So, my breakfast isn't over till I've done the jigsaw puzzle, each newsletter. But I learned about the discount, and in the newsletter is the discount code, that you will need the discount code in order to get the $10 off between now and Friday. So you only have a couple of days. You have a couple of days to get that taken care of. It is for new members, as well as if you are ready to renew your membership. You're going to want to renew your membership, because I hope in October we're going to be able to show you the 2022 block of the month. It is done. It's hanging on my bedroom wall. I am chomping at the bit to show it to you. It is so beautiful. We don't have the kit ready yet, so we made this one, my sample kit that I tested the pattern with, I used from my own fabrics. And while it looks nothing like the quilt behind me, those are the leftover fabrics from my particular sample of next year's. And I hadn't put them away yet. They were just sitting on a chair, and I went, I think they would make a fine, cool kaleidoscope. So you'll have, my traditional friends are going to love it, and everybody's going to love it. And it was a wonderful quilt to make. And the great thing for me is no 1-inch checkbox next year. You won't be worried about paper piecing unless you want to paper piece, and I've got extra, all kind of good information on that. If there's a couple of alternatives if you want to do that, but can't say more about that. But by the time we meet again in September, I will have taped the show, which is going to air in January. I'll be going out to Dallas here in a couple of weeks to do that. So you will want to renew your membership if you haven't already, and getting the $10 off is just $10 you can spend on something else. So the newsletter is good stuff. Okay. The other thing I want to mention is last week on Wednesday, just kind of as a fill-in, they asked me to do a live on using the forum, and I did. And we had quite a bit of people found it very helpful. A lot of people whose avatar, their little face, is nothing more than that kind of goofy silhouette, because they couldn't figure out how to change it and put their own picture there. I showed how to do that, and I explained a lot of things about using the forum. So somebody asked if there would be written instructions, and there wasn't going to be, but I thought, I'm a person that loves step-by-step written instructions, especially with quilt computer kind of stuff. So that next day I sat down and did a complete step-by-step. Here's how you can upload photos, and here's how you resize them, and here's how you do it. I had a different one on how you do it from an iPad. I'm not having any luck right now uploading pictures from my iPhone, but my iPad works just great. If the pictures are too big, you need to resize them smaller, and I talk and explain how to do that. So that post, if you subscribe to the newsletter, there was a link in there, so you can always find that kind of stuff in our newsletters. But also on YouTube, the Quilt Show channel, it's still there. That video, the live that I did last week on how to use the forum, is there as well. And a lot of people found it helpful. They did change their pictures and have a real picture up instead of the silhouette and things like that. But I would encourage you, if you haven't taken the time to do it, to look around the website. We get a lot of questions, and I am kind of the forum wrangler who answers the questions that come in about just about everything that people ask. And if you'll just go across the top tabs, start with watch, and look and see what's there. Just click on that and see what's there. Besides the current show, yesterday someone wanted to know, was there any place she could see a list of all of the shows? Well, sure enough, I went to watch, and right there at the top, there's a clickable button that says list of all the shows prior to 2021. And the air date, the artist, the show number, what the topic was, and things like that. So we have a lot on there that people don't know is there just because you haven't had a chance to look. The next one over is Learn. There are tons of classrooms on Learn. You go there each month in order to get your block of the month pattern. But there's lots of other things there too. Alex has great classes that she's been doing for not just recently, not in the last year and a half, But way back when, and lots of other great teachers that are on there that have provided some really terrific stuff that stays on our website that as a STAR member you have access to. So take a look there. I mentioned, of course, the forum, the Quiltopedia, and so someone yesterday's question was, in our shop, there's a place that you can do a wish list. So you're looking around, you're saying, oh, I might want to buy that. And you click on it to save it to your wish list. Well, she didn't know where her wish list was. She looked all over the shop and couldn't find her wish list. The wish list is under My Dashboard. So on the far right section called My Dashboard, you want to make sure you go in there and take a look and see what's there. Your profile is there. That's a place you can change your avatar. You can add a signature, as I did. If you've got a website or you've got a motto, you can tell us what city and state you live in, things like that. You can do that right in a signature, and then it's there every time you post. You can look at your recent, there's a button in My Dashboard called Connect, and you can see recent posts that you made. So there's a lot of great stuff there if you'll just look around, and you'll get a lot of your questions answered, that maybe questions you didn't even know you had yet. So I encourage you to take a few minutes to do that. It can be really helpful. Okay. Another thing, of course, is my blog. I write that each month pertaining to the individual month. So the August one is, and they all stay up. So they're in my blog, and you can either follow my blog or you can just remember to go look. I always put a link on the forum on the first of each month, or sometimes it's the day before when I know that they're going to release the pattern. So I would encourage you to look at that too. It's just, most blocks of the month where you get a pattern, you get the pattern, and then that's what you get. And if it says so, that's what it says. If it says applique, that's what it says. It doesn't give you step by step and lots of detail. I try to provide that because first of all, I'm a teacher by nature, and I like to provide a lot of answers to questions that I know from teaching beginners for years and years and years, as well as teaching complex patterns. I know that there can be more questions. So we try to provide that to you, but that's extra added bonus. That is, I think to expect it is a little surprising, just because most patterns don't give you that kind of information. So I hope that you will take advantage of the things that are there. I'm going to go look for questions, but as I look at my screen, I'm going to say one more thing just in case to head off a question. To the right of my cool Kaleidoscope is a little round robin quilt that I'm working on with my Sunday so-and-sos. It has nothing to do with anything. It is not next year's quilt, so don't ask. It doesn't look anything like that. It's nothing like that. It's a little round robin project. I don't like an empty design wall. I like stuff on my wall. So my friend Brenda made that kind of whimsical, fun applique middle. It went on to our next friend Donna, and she added the wonderful pieced border that she came up with. I put it on the wall and said, what am I going to do next? And I went, I know, I'm going to add a simple little applique border. So I'm in the process of that. All the pieces are cut out and the vines are sewed on. Now I'm going to needle turn, hand turn the flowers and the leaves and things. So that's what that is, just in case you're wondering. It has nothing to do with anything related to the quilt show. So, okay, let me see if I can take a peek at questions. Alrighty. Oh, good. Oh, Rondi. All right. Yeah, Rondi appreciates the information. That's terrific. And somebody asked for the website. The website for the quilt show is www.thequiltshow.com. My blog is bbquiltmaker.blogspot.com. Go to help Alex. Okay. All right. Someone had a problem with getting the pattern, so John has jumped in there. John's my producer in California. He's watching all of this too. He's written to ask Diana to contact him separately so he can help to solve whatever her problem is. We've got folks in Saskatchewan and Lake Havasu City and Columbia. And Livermore, that's right. It had to be Ronnie. And there's my good buddy Margot. Okay, great. Let's see what else we got. Any other Okay, good. All right. Don't see much. All righty. Okay, let's go back here. So the forum is just the easiest way for you to get questions answered. There is a topic for each month. The topic for this month to ask questions is called Tall Buildings Number 3, Ask Questions Here. To show us your pictures of your tall buildings, there's a topic under Color My World called Tall Buildings Show Your Progress Here. I didn't do a separate Show Your Progress Here for each month. They're all tall buildings, and so you can put them in there. And it's fun to watch and see what people are doing. If you're on Instagram, there's plenty of people on Instagram. I'm seeing those. Wendy watches the Instagram, so you can make sure you tag her, Wendy Williams, Flying Fish Kits, on Instagram, and she will see what you're working on. That's really a lot of fun too. I'm seeing some really good ones there too in the Instagram. And on our block of the month, our color, the very first one of Color My World, it tells you which hashtags we encourage you to use so that the world can find those all together. So the plan is for me to be here in September on the first Friday of September. Let me take a look and see when that date would be. I'm at this point just I keep track of today and tomorrow, and that's about it. Okay, that would be September 3rd. And so I do plan to be here for that, where we'll talk about tall building number 4, the last one, the great big, the real tall one, and we can start to get ready to go. So I hope that you're enjoying getting your tall buildings together. And even if you're not, some people, I get responses, people saying, oh, I'm so far behind. It's not a race. Somebody has to be first. Somebody else has to be last. Life intervenes sometimes, and we don't get a chance to get back to it right away as fast as we would like. The most important thing for you to make sure you do is that you have these patterns saved so that you don't lose them, because I can start to remind you now, December 31st of this year, these patterns are no longer free. The license that we have with the designer expires on December 31st. We cannot provide those to you after December 31st. That's a violation of the agreement with her. And she has, in the same way that she can't teach it this year because it's only available here during this year. So you want to make sure that you have your patterns, and just saving them on a computer may not be sufficient. If your computer crashes, you might want to have a couple of backups. Anyway, it's just, we'll remind you of that as it gets closer to the end of the year. So enjoyed being with you this morning, and until next time, that's a wrap.